Awesome. Raul, how you doing?
Well, good, man. Drove not too far to come down here, so that's cool. Nice and easy.
Just down the street, huh?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you coming out today, and longtime fan.
Oh, cool. Right on.
So it's really an honor to talk to you. And I tell you, Ozomatli really is life-changing. You know, we were talking earlier. I'm originally from Virginia,
Yeah.
but moved to L.A., and one of the first bands everybody was talking about my musical journey was, hey man, have you heard Ozo? Have you heard Ozomatli? And I was like, no. It's like, that's a cool name, but I haven't heard him. And all the places I was playing, like Universal Bar and Grill, or all these places, like, Ozo played here. And I was like, really? And there was all this kind of build up, and then I think it might have been KCRW. Heard you guys perform, and I was just like, wow.
Cool.
Just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just like, so yeah, it goes so far back, and no, I really appreciate it. I mean, tell me about you. How did you get started in the music? And I mean, what was your first experiences in listening to music growing up?
I came from a family of lovers of music. None of them were musicians, but there was just a lot of music in the house, and I was the youngest. So I just heard a lot of different music from each of my parents and all of my three older sisters, and they were different ages also, my sisters. So it was like I was hearing everything from things that my parents love to what teenagers and younger kids kind of liked in the house. So it's a real big variety, and for me, I think I've always liked. That was my introduction to music. The kind of like just overwhelming presence it had in our home, people playing music and people enjoying it, but also songs. I think I've always been like kind of a song guy,
Right.
And if there's anything I do in the band, that's one of them. Like make sure that we create songs, and I think I got it from there, just listening to all the music that was being pumped in the house through records, through the radio. And kind of that classic format of a song, and I think from all these different types of music, because it was all different kinds of people, ages really like listening at the time I was growing up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like, what were some of the bands that, were playing in the
Okay, well,
house?
so if, I think it was typical for my parents to have, which is very common. I grew up in Boyle Heights. They were born here, and there's, Trio Los Panchos. I don't know if you ever heard that band.
Oh, yeah.
It's very famous, trio style. That's from Mexico. Two guitarists usually, three vocals, one might play maracas, 3-part harmonies. It's almost like classic Mexican songbook. Like you could compare it to like kind of like the standards, the kind of pop and jazz standards that people knew like from the 30s and the 40s and the 50s. Same thing in Mexico, and this was their version. And this particular record, they did this record with a person who I believe was not Mexican, Edie Gourmet. I don't even think she spoke Spanish well enough.
Huh.
I think she learned it phonetically, I think. But these songs are so popular, like even to this day. And so stuff like that. Also old R&B, my dad growing up in LA, hearing just the first versions of rock and roll and R&B. He also, my grandfather, who was from Jalpa, Zacatecas, one of the northern states, in New Mexico, was a fruit seller. They used to go to the Central Valley. So he actually would play a lot of country music because he grew up going to the Central Valley. And I was telling this friend of mine about, something like the Bakersfield Sound, which people might not know about, but it was from, people leaving the Dust Bowl, ending up in the West Coast, ending up in the Central Valley in California, and kind of developing their own style of country music. Hearing all that kind of stuff. And then the stuff my older sisters were listening to, everything that, one was 11 years older than me, one was 9 years older than me, and one was 5 years older than me. So I remember about 5 years old hearing the music from a 16-year-old, a 14-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And it could be all like the classic rock stuff of the day. It could be Cat Stevens. It could be, Led Zeppelin. It could be, and all their friends coming over. So hearing just kind of what kids were into at the time. So it was all that kind of mix for me. Yeah.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
When did you pick up the guitar?
I first picked up guitar when I was 14, and a friend of mine, Jaime, who there's a family called the De La Oz that lived a few blocks down. His older brother was a great musician, Arturo, and he played all kinds of instruments. And Jaime kind of picked up the guitar from him, and we would just kind of try to figure things out. And we actually took classes at ELAC, not too far from here, like during the summer.
Yeah.
I remember going, just trying to learn things. And that's what we would do. I think the first few years, we would just walk around with beat up guitars, trying to do our best to figure stuff out.
Man.
Yeah.
And from there, did you start playing in bands? Or?
Yeah, I think in high school was the first time that I really started playing in bands. And I think at the high school I went to, I was probably one of the better guitar players. Not necessarily a songwriter yet, not necessarily a well-rounded musician, but I could handle myself on guitar probably a little bit better than most people there. So it was all this type of, and it's funny because I grew up with a lot of rock music, but all these guys were more like into kind of more the artistic and alternative things that were happening, like REM and The Cure and stuff like that. So I got all into that, listening and kind of having to learn all that stuff. So for me, it was cool to kind of have, and even like punk rock stuff. So it was cool for me I just wanted to play. I think it's the same thing today. Like,
yeah.
You want to play? Okay. And what are you playing? Cool. I've never played it. Let's do it.
Let's play.
I learned a lot of music like that. I think being in Ozomatli kind of has meant that for me. Like, I was one who just kept showing up, and I didn't know a lot of styles that we ended up playing, like any kind of Caribbean music and salsa music. I had to kind of figure out some basic stuff to kind of fit in, but that's fun. I like doing that. Yeah.
No, that's cool. I mean, that's one of the things about Ozo is just like so many different styles, and it's just seamless. Like when I listen to it, it flows so well, and there's so many different styles going on. I mean, tell me about that. Like when you guys first started getting together, like what was that like, blending all these styles into each other?
It's because we were open and because we had to have some kind of basic repertoire to fill in an hour or two. So the first gig we had, we were in a circle and we had to play in a couple hours. And we were doing a benefit. We were playing an event to raise money for this center that was, it was kind of an important part of our story, how it got started. And we supported it, and it's the reason we came together. It was called the Peace and Justice Center, and it was just west of downtown off of like 4th and Bixel. I think now I think that building was owned by the Archdiocese, or the city owned it. Now it's like a movie studio. It's like Downtown Studios, I think it's called. It's in that complex.
Oh, wow.
And we just showed up to support, but we had never rehearsed. So it was like, what do you know? What do you know? What do you know? Who has a song to play? So I was really into like folk music from Mexico and South America at the time. So I taught them a few of those things. And they never played that, but they were like, all right, let's figure it out. Another guy had this like funk jam. All right, well, we've never played it. Let's figure it out. Horn players come up with a line. It's kind of as basic as that. And we relied on each other to kind of like, participate to play something. It wasn't a plan. It was just like, okay, we're playing Raul's folk song. Oh, we're playing this cumbia, that kind of groove. And Will had never played that, and he was playing it like more like a reggae. Oh, that works, so fine. Aju was well versed in like Caribbean and like salsa music, and like he would tell us kind of like, well, this is how we can play this. So we just were kind of sat around and figured it out.
Wow, that's a trip, but that makes sense how you guys put it together, and then from there you just started. You like, we're gonna be a band, or
yeah. Well, we for the first, I don't know how long, maybe up to a year. Like we literally would play for free at places, and little by little, people started hearing about us. And I think our mantra was like, we had to definitely rock the crowd and keep people dancing. So there's that element of what we do. We wanted it to be rhythmic. We wanted it to be exciting. We wanted people be engaged and moving, and so that was kind of our goal. That started getting around, and people started asking us. Then they would start hiring us. I think the first gig, I don't know if it was the first gig we got, but it was at a Pasadena Art Center for like $400 or something, and that was the most money we had made. And we were like, oh wow, cool, like like it was a big deal. And little by little, then we just started getting hired to play places, a lot of colleges, private events, and that's kind of how it took off. And then we started playing clubs, and in that process, we would work on our show. Then we would be like, okay, how do we make this a song? This idea that we've been jamming, how do we make more of a song arrangement? How do we, just keep learning things from each other, and then keep playing live and seeing what works and what didn't, and we played the things that worked.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard so much. I mean, I've seen you guys perform a number of times, but even before I saw you guys play, I mean, there was so much word going on about how you guys would do your shows. And I'm remembering now as you're talking, something about, and I don't know if you still do it, but there'd be the crowd and you guys would go through the crowd and then do the show. I mean, how'd that?
It started out because we were competing with this other band, and we wanted to find a way, like, how can we one-up them?
Yeah.
And this, I'm not sure, I think it was Will who brought this up, the bass player, but I can't remember, the exact I don't even know if we worked on it. I can't even remember that. I just remember we did it. We were playing the Viper Room at the time, and I don't think that club even exists anymore.
No.
And, we decided we were going to start from outside to bring some people in and also to, like, get everyone hyped up. So we marched playing our drums in a style that's called comparsa, which is, there's like Cuban comparsa, and then there's kind of like Brazilian samba. It's kind of like this fusion we do of that. And we went in, and it's a tradition in like New Orleans. It's kind of like New Orleans.
Yeah.
Second line. We just, the vibes we were doing, it was like kind of more Caribbean, Brazilian styles. And we just walked in, got up on stage, and would start the show that way.
Yeah.
And then we don't really do that as much anymore. We do end the show still usually that way.
No, I mean, the shows are like so energetic and diverse. And I mean, what's a creative process when you guys, are jamming on a new song or a new riff? I mean, how's that work? It's like maybe you'll come in with the riff or something, and then the drummer puts a beat. I mean, how's that go?
There's no set way. Sometimes there's a song that's complete that everybody likes, and they just go, all right, let's play it that way. And then sometimes there's just snippets of ideas that are nothing, but the groove is so tight or the riff is so tight, like it's like we should make something out of this. And then I think in our band, things get done when people kind of take leadership, because there's so many of us.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily, there's some roles that people play a little bit more consistently than others, but it usually is like whoever wants to do it.
Yeah.
So, and if you can keep that energy going and keep people motivated, all of a sudden there's some new music. And it could be about anything. So when we get together, it's like it can be anything from hearing a bunch of demos or ideas everybody has, picking a few and kind of trying to commit to finish them, starting from scratch. Making music for us is a long process. I've been always one who's wished we would put out more records more often. But our process is kind of our own. It's kind of, any band is unique in it. And we all have to kind of be into it. And sometimes it takes a little bit longer to make sure that our music is all that we want it to be, But
absolutely.
We get to it, yeah.
Yeah, no, the quality is there. I mean, it's consistent. I'm just imagining you guys jamming. I mean, it's a big band, a lot of ideas, and how you guys would put it together. I mean, is it one of those things that's like, you'll kind of jam it through in a rehearsal, maybe record the rehearsal, and then go back and kind of reform it, figure it out?
It could be that, yeah. We don't like to rehearse a lot. We've never been that band. So we rehearse when we have to. When there's like a show, like a certain, like recently we did this thing for PBS called Live at the Caverns. It's this cool giant cave in Tennessee. And they gave us like time frames of how long the songs had to be. And so there's like some TV kind of production elements. So then a situation like that, we got to go in and we got to practice. We got to change the arrangements so that they fit this time frame, stuff like that. So, when we're coming up with new ideas, oftentimes it's in sound check. There may be something we have written, and the other day there was a song we tried to record a number of times, like a few years back. I think Will brought it up. I've always thought it was a great song. It was a song called Find a Way. And we just practiced it a little bit, what we remembered in rehearsal, and we played it that evening, and it felt great. So we thought, oh, we should probably look at this song and try to like make a real version of it again that suits us today, you know, and that's kind of the way. And I think when we're figuring it out on stage, it's actually more fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I could, that makes sense to me. That you guys just kind of flesh it out and kind of jam it and then make it into a song. Because everything, whether it's concert or recorded, it just sounds fresh. Like you guys just, I wouldn't say you just came up with it, but it just sounds so fresh. That's its best.
I think in that situation, sometimes accidents happen that are cool, or sometimes you're forced to kind of like just make a decision. Like, what's the horn line? I don't know. We gotta play it tonight. Just make sure you two are like playing it correct. So just don't overthink it, you know. Like just come up with it and go. And I think with that song too, as you started chanting the chorus and the crowd started chanting it back, and we were like, oh, that's a good little thing. We should do that. So it's just like you kind of have these little things that happen that you can keep and can be cool, you know.
Man, yeah. So that's really amazing. So you do that, and I mean, you work out songs and sound check, and any other way? Do you ever like, you know, maybe jam out a song, record it, and then bring it in already done to the band?
Yeah, we do that. There's, like I said, there's no set way. We actually recorded 3 tracks recently with this guy Dan Ubik, and you know, there was some elements we liked about it, some elements we didn't like about it. The process was kind of very individual. It was like us coming in on our own and tracking. And that wasn't the way we originally were going to do it. We were going to do it like, let's write this, learn it, then just go play it live, and then we'll like tighten it up how we need to, like, you know, overdub things if we need to, re-sing things if we need to, etc. And it didn't go that way, but after that process, we were like, we probably should have done it the way we originally thought. So maybe we'll go back and do it that way. Maybe not, but there's no set way to do it, you know. And I think you have to be proud of what you put out, but at the same time today there's so much pressure, and I think it's good I to put out more music, you know, to kind of like, and I would love us, you know, to kind of like put out a song every couple of months or something. I think that'd be cool, you know.
We'd love the more we can get, the better.
Yeah, me too.
I can't get enough. So from there, it's like, you know, when you guys record a song and you're putting it together and you're mixing it, I mean, you know, as you know, you could, any artist could drive themselves crazy trying to finish it. How do you know when the song is done and you just like, okay, that's it?
I think it's different for everybody, you know. I think that's one of the hardest things to, you know, I've teach songwriting, you know. I've taught it to high school kids. I taught it in colleges. I taught it different things. And I remember working with some high school kids, and I'm asking, Mr. Pacheco, what's the secret? What's the hardest thing? And I'm just like finishing it. Yeah. You have to kind of be committed almost to let it go at a certain point. Like, because it's not worth the time and effort to, in my opinion, to kind of store it away. If it's that good, you know, if it's good, not everything you do is going to be stellar, and it may not even connect with everybody, but the exercise of it for you as a musician and for you as a songwriter, I think that's important, because I think you do get better and better the more you do it. And to challenge yourself not to be repetitive. Don't do the same changes you've been doing. Don't do the same kind of like style you've been doing. Don't do the same kind of like forms you've been doing. Like be self-critical and look at yourself and go, I need to force myself to do something a little different on this next round of a song. And I think with us, you know, there's just a feeling that everyone's contributed, done their part on it, and it's ready to go, you know.
No, that's so cool.
Yeah.
I really like the fact that you teach songwriting. Tell me more about that.
Well, I think that's always been the thing I've been probably most attracted to in music. And I think before the band, I was playing, you know, kind of like different kinds of style of music than Ozomatli. That was really just song-oriented, singer-songwriter-oriented. And I kind of never got to do that much. But as I got older, I wanted to kind of hone that for me. And then also, I got opportunities with other people to teach kids, teach high school kids. I actually teach in prison also.
Wow.
I go to prison and I sit around with all these cats and we sit around and write songs. And there's one organization called ACTA, the Association of California Traditional Arts, and they. I was in China working with a guy named Gabriel Gonzalez, who's a singer, and he's also a songwriter. He plays in a pretty big salsa band around town called La Verdad. Known him for years. We'd go in together, and we came up with some beautiful songs with these people there, and we're actually trying to make a record of that. And I think that's a great story, and I think it'd be worth doing. And so there's a form, it's not that crazy. And I think even if you're not a musician, it seems like such a thing that you can't do, but it really is. I mean, if you got 4 lines with a certain pattern, maybe a line that repeats a couple times is the chorus. Do it again with different 4 lines.
This is not rocket science.
Go back to that thing.
Yeah.
If you want to have a bridge, that's lyrical, this is where you get to reaffirm the story or challenge the story you've been telling, make a twist. And then, all you really need to do is go back to the chorus. So it's not this crazy thing, and you don't have to have a lot of chords either.
Yeah.
So I think the type of songwriting I like is lyric-oriented in terms of like being poignant or really allowing the listener to see what's happening in a sense. Or whether it's a moment or kind of a story over time, or whether it's just a fun pattern of words. Like it's boundless. There's no way to not do it. There's no way you have to do it. So
there's no one way.
Yeah, and I think that gets confusing for people because it seems like there's an answer. But that's the trick of any art. I think what's special about it is that's where you get to be yourself. Well, however you think that eventually should work is where you get to kind of be the author of that presentation.
That's your take on it.
Yeah, and I think it's fun to see that and teach that to people and then kind of start to understand this. And over time, like, being able to say, well, I think that phrase is the chorus because, and you're like, yeah, that is the phrase.
Yeah.
And I love that process. I've always been that person and one of those persons in the band who kind of contributes to our music in that way, for sure.
Yeah, I think that is so great that you teach that and in the prisons too.
Yeah.
Do you notice after you kind of embrace them with the songwriting skills of a life change for them?
I think so. I think that it's a real affirmative thing and the thing I love the most. There are some people who play a little guitar, play a little piano, and some of them are very good. Are drummers or percussionists. But songwriting is a different thing than all of that. I've been with musicians who are so high level in a recording studio, and when it comes time to write a song, they're like, and it's funny because oftentimes those situations, I'm not the best guitarist in there. I'm not the best musician by far, but I have songs, and it's like, oh, that's my role in that. So I think for people who never have written a song and then come to the class, because they're just like, what is this? To see them kind of all of a sudden start bringing lyrics, start making contributions to melody, understanding, can we change the feel of the music? Can we change the chord? Like, can we change the tonal center on this section? And, to really hear them kind of learning this aspects in this language, I think is cool. And when they do get it, it's like, I do see that, like, they get excited, and that's fulfilling, as a teacher. And I think it's cool to see that in people who just didn't expect it, and all of a sudden, and then they're going, whether they're kids, going home and kind of writing it on their phone or in their computer on a notepad, or cats going back to their cell and like getting out their little book and like telling a story, and then we bring it in, and then we're like, all right, let's get these ideas and see what we can do with it.
I think that's incredible because there's so many people out there that I think if they had some creative outlet in some way, it would change their life.
Yeah, I think for me, art is so important. I think any kind of expression and the freedom in that. And there's a type of discipline for sure to get good at a craft, but there's also just the freedom of just being it, and just doing it and not having, and that's really what I'm trying to teach too, like how to not edit yourself in the beginning of a process, because I think the uniqueness comes out of you when you're not judging yourself. the way you speak, the way you play, the way you sing, the way you. But if you're worried about like that doesn't sound good or that doesn't make sense you never get to really see that for just what it is. Kind of, whether it's like throwing ideas on the wall and just kind of looking at what shapes take place in a sense. I think it's much more better to do that because your uniqueness starts to show. The way you speak, the way you play, the way you might sing something. It doesn't even matter if you're not the greatest player, the greatest singer, the greatest lyricist. There's something about our individual language and perspective and how we see things that I think can make the same three chords sound very different from each person.
Totally.
So, and I think that's what's key, especially in songwriting. So to try to let go of what you're known for, let go of what's expected of you, and be completely free. Because when else do we get to do that? And that's one of the reasons why we play music in the first place, I think, because there's a sense of like freedom in it. There's a sense of joy. There's a sense of like unhinged. Like there's no one's telling you something at that moment in a sense. And I think to create from that place to me is always the best.
I think you answered my next question ahead of time because that kind of relates to what I was going to say. Is cool. Like, what about getting stuck?
Yeah.
You know, there's so many times it's like as an artist, you get stuck in your head and it's just like you're saying, it's like, well, I don't like the way I sound. I don't like the way this guitar is. And then it's like you psych yourself out.
You know, there's lots of paths to go when you're in that situation. For me, what I do, I think it is because I've been doing this long enough. Like, there's a lot of ups and downs in life. There's been a lot of ups and downs in our career. There's been a lot of ups and downs in my career and in my life. Like, that's normal. You know, it goes like this. People don't always tell you that. You know, there's no way to sustain something like completely like up.
Not possible.
It's just, it's life is not like that for whatever reason. So, say in the process of writing a song, this idea is so great, boom, and then you hit like a roadblock. There's also, I think, from experience, you can't take it too seriously. You're not a doctor with a heart in front of you, like trying to save this person on the table. When I have songwriting sessions, whether they're with students, cats in prison, or at a high-end recording studio with an artist who, you know, is trying to have something for their record or for a movie, I just remind everybody, you know, the worst thing we're gonna do, the worst thing that's gonna happen today is we're gonna have a really good time. That's the worst thing. Yeah. Like, we may not come out with a song. It doesn't always happen. So, you know, there's a certain level of like committing to make it as best you can, and then when it feels like, you know, for me, like, you know, let it go, because it's not the most important thing.
Not life or death.
And we can let it go and move on. You know, and when I get like that, I stop. I go do something else, or work on a different idea, or let it go, and then let it come back tomorrow or later in the day, or let yourself kind of have some room to kind of like just, you know, kind of see it a different way and get out of your system. You don't have to kind of like be so have so much angst about it. At least in my process.
Don't pressure yourself.
Yeah, there's no point.
Now that makes so much sense. Yeah. You know, if you just open up, it'll be there when it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, you just said something that, you know, you've been doing this a long time. I mean, I know that Ozomatli, the 30-year anniversary is coming up. I mean, how's it feel?
It feels great. You know, I don't think we've thought about it much until very recently. Because recently now, everybody else is bringing it up. There's an organization downtown that we might play at. There's a different place we might play at. And they're approaching us. We've talked loosely. We should do some stuff for, you know, we should reissue the first record, and we should have some new music. We should have some kind of, you know, important shows that are all about that. Maybe get other people we know and love who are bigger than us to come sing our songs with us. You know, things. Just have some kind of events. But now people are starting to talk to us about it. Like you're mentioning it. Other people who are booking us are mentioning it, and we're all like, "Oh wow, it has been 30 years." Yeah. I think it's cool, you know. I think we're lucky as a band. I think not many bands get to do that. I think we're still out there playing well. We're still turning people on. There's still people who have never heard us. There's people who bring their daughter and then their kids. There's like, and it is special, and you kind of recognize it. And it is an accomplishment to have had this job in this form as this band for that many years, and to have kind of had all the experiences we've had. So it's been cool to kind of be reminded by other people and be like, oh wow, this is kind of a big deal for us.
Yeah.
And we should kind of take the point to breathe and to kind of take advantage of it, and in a way that reminds people we're still making music, and that we're still have kick-ass shows.
Oh man, you guys beyond kick-ass. I mean, yeah. I mean, how do you do it? Because I mean, I know so many artists. You know how it goes. I mean, you get in a band, and sometimes the band is awesome. The band is killer, but yet personalities, opportunities. I mean, how did that work?
I mean, we have gone through changes. When we first started, everybody, it was kind of like whoever showed up. There'd be 15 people on stage, and it was fun. It was crazy. It was that was the point. It was kind of like, there's a space for you. Just show up. And we're the ones who kept showing up. So for a long time, it was a 10-person lineup. It kind of became like the lineup in the beginning. And Cut and Charlie left because they had a band prior to us called the Jurassic 5.
Right.
That it was kind of, they were struggling, and they weren't kind of really doing anything. So they started playing with us. And then all of a sudden that EP blew up in England, and they came back to us and were like, look, we were doing this like since even when we were straight teenagers with these guys, and we're going to go pursue that. Cool. Yeah. So we got other people in that, and then for a while there was still like 10 other. And then at a certain point, the changes started happening a little too much on those like last 3 or 4 people. So we just said, you know what? The original, most of us are original now. There's 6 of us who've been at it from the beginning. We have a drummer, Mario, who's played with us over 12 years, over a period of 12 years within the band's history. And we have a good, kind of real tight way of playing together right now. It's kind of like the de facto lineup at the moment, and there's 6 of us from the original crew. So, you mentioned how the personalities come and go. We all go through that.
Yeah.
It's like we're brothers, and sometimes you fight with your brother. Sometimes you don't talk to your brother. Sometimes you love your brother to death. We're normal in that way. And we're very open about it because it's more abnormal to have like everything be all cool between everyone for 30 years. It hasn't always been. We've had growing pains. We've had to work things out with each other, kind of see the bigger pictures of things. Because usually in those situations, and whether it's a relationship, whether it's work, whether it's a creative project, you put your heart into it. And it's that sometimes feels unappreciated, or is overbearing to other people, or it's usually like too much or too little in a sense.
Yeah.
And so you have all these personalities going through it at different times for different reasons. So it has taken us a lot times, to work things out with one another. And right now it just feels like we have a good kind of healthy working relationship with each other. Part of it is we don't tour like we used to. We still play a lot, but we literally play like anywhere to average like 3 weekends a month. Go out, last weekend we played 3 shows in Colorado, came home. This weekend we have a couple shows. Next weekend we'll do the same thing. That pays the bills. We have a really good organization, like a business that we figured out how to work, which is very important, I think, to talk about at some point, with musicians and bands, how to, really, really make smart decisions with your money, how to understand the reality of your financial situation. And we were lucky that we had a lot of people generally looking out for us. Sometimes there were mistakes. Sometimes we had to go through changes, but we survived it. And I think what has kept us in the band is that we've always wanted to be here, because if we didn't, we would leave. So for whatever reason, the ups and downs and the joy of the whole ride, we've all kept showing up. So we still feel like, I don't feel any kind of tension in that way from people. And it just feels good to, hopefully create some new music. Yeah.
Man, no, that's So interesting. I mean, it's like a family. It's like you said, it's like your brother. Sometimes you get along with your brother, sometimes you don't, but you're still brothers.
Yes.
You're still brothers.
Yeah, I feel very lucky that there's, 6 other people, other men in my life. Like if I fucked up, if I did something that was shitty, or they would try to help me as much as they could without question, if I was in a jam for whatever reason. And I think we feel that way about each other. Well, even if it's on one of those days where I don't like a certain cat for whatever reason, if it was a real thing, I'd be there to support. I think we all would do that. Yeah.
Man, that's so deep.
Yeah.
Now, I think about Ozo and, I mean, the shows that you guys have played over the years and the success that you've had. And I think that it's, especially for aspiring artists, they look at that and they say, well, they're just naturally amazing. And you guys are, but can you give us a time in the history of Ozo where maybe you guys faced a challenge where things weren't so great and you had to work your way through it?
There's always stuff that comes up. In the beginning, it was, how do we all quit our jobs and fully commit to this? When it wasn't that much money we were getting. And life was different back then. So it's like finding creative ways that everyone is cool with. It could be something like, I had kids I was the first one who had kids. They'd give me extra money knowing that, if you're going to be on the road, like, you're going to have other things for your child to be taken care of. We'll give you a little bit extra money. Like, something like that is kind of like, it's bigger picture kind of thinking, It's not so much like, Raul's getting extra money. It's like, we're taking a risk because we think we're going to grow.
Yeah.
We think we're all going to be able to kind of afford and support one another in a different way. And eventually that is what happened. And then there are times, we made a first record with a company called Alamo Sounds. They got sold to Interscope. We made our second record on Interscope. And we weren't, we've never been like a pop band in that sense. I think what they wanted was something different, but we made a good record and then we moved on. And then we went to a company called Concord. So there was a lot of like changing of administrative people who were working with to make records. So the changing of the record business. So 30 years ago, I remember when they brought in Pro Tools, it took 2 days for them to tighten up the live drums. 2 days.
Yeah.
Like we were all working, we were recording the tape and stuff. And so the technology differences that I have, the kinds of, I think when we made the budgets that you would have, our second record budget was crazy. We're lucky now if you put a record out, if you get your license with someone that you get, 25 grand, 30, 40 grand or something.
Right.
And that's even hard to do. So it's like, the whole idea of music and how it's served has changed and how you make money from that has changed. I think one reason we were lucky is generally we've always relied on our shows. That's the bulk of our business. And any other stuff from that has been gravy. And we've had to learn how to be better at those other things. Had to be better at merch, how to travel cheaply in a way that's still comfortable for everybody, how to be healthy, on the road. Like most of us don't drink anymore and don't party like we used to. You just can't keep that up. And so there's all of those kind of learning process to keep yourselves able to play, and able to kind of show up and do a great job when you do. And I think throughout the years we've learned a lot of different ways of how to do that. Yeah.
No, it's brilliant. And you said that you guys really upped your game in the business side of things.
Yeah.
I mean, can you expand on that more? Because I think that there's, so many artists are in that kind of left field creative headspace, and they can be extremely creative, but when it comes to business as music artists, sometimes, I don't know, they don't always cross. I mean, how do you figure that out?
Well, it's one of those things that, it's, if your brain is not there, it's one of the reasons why you do play guitar, because you don't want to think about that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like you want, and there's this romantic fantasy about being that. And you can be that and have other people that work for you that you trust, but it's still important for you to know exactly what they're doing. It's still important to know how, like, when a dollar comes into the pot, like, where does it go? I think that's important to know all that, and because it helps you make better, bigger picture decisions. About decisions, the things you're doing when you're taking a risk, which I think you should at times, and knowing that, well, yeah, it might not work out, but you got to like try it if you're gonna go for it. If you're gonna try to grow as a business, say as a musician, you might want to spend money on your own equipment. Well, that seems worth it.
Yeah.
So things as basic like that, like put that into like bigger pictures. So knowing as much information you can of how, especially what the business is now. Like business now is being like TikTok, Instagram, things like that. Like if you're not doing that, you're not kind of in that loop of that giant universe of all this media floating around. But if you want to have some kind of like, influence in it, you do have to be in that on some level. You don't have to if you don't want to, but if you want that aspect of popularity, you do. Yeah. And finding a way to do that, which may not be a strength of yours. It's not a strength of mine. It's not something I like to do. We as a band, we actually hire a small company to help us with that. It's very personal, but and it's generational stuff too. Like we're older and we're just like on some level, but our manager's like, you guys got to do this. So we're like, you're right. So how do we find a way to get that going with that still keeps us authentic to who we are, but puts it out there for people, and that's just the way it is. So every era, every format is a little different, and I think you should look at that and accept that things change, technology changes. And that's all. It always will, and it always has. So there's no like golden era of anything.
Yeah.
There's periods of things that were cool at that period, and then that was it.
Wow.
And so I think having an understanding of that is important.
So tell me, I have my favorite.
Cool.
What is your favorite Ozomatli album?
God, I've never thought of it that way. I'm gonna say one that's not very the one we did most recently. It's not like, I just think there are better songs on that record than
Marching On?
Yes, I think there's a lot of great songs on that record. It's not quote unquote we've always been known for. It's not, but I think we worked hard at those songs. And me, like I was saying earlier, like that's my thing. So even like say the first record that everybody says, it's unique, it's special, it's different. I don't think those songs are all great. I don't. I look at them, I can see why they're interesting, and I can see why they're cool, and I can see why the thing we were doing was so special that that's what made it special. It was like the combination of all that a lot of people hadn't seen in that way in a long time. There's always been bands that have done mixes and things, and but that was our version at that moment, and it really resonated. It made us special. But I like the last one because I think we're better songwriters, and I think these songs are actually, in my opinion, they're better.
Fantastic. Mi Destinino, Sunsets.
Yeah.
Love them. But I love all of it. But the album to me that really, I don't know. I think it was a pivotal point in my life. I was working super hard, and but Street Signs,
cool.
man.
Yeah.
It just was like,
what songs are on that? Well, how does that record start?
Believe, Love and Hope.
Believe is great.
Saturday Night.
Believe is cool. Love and Hope is great. I think it's a great song. Saturday Night, yes. Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
Was Cuando Canto on that?
I think so.
It is. It's on the end, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of those songs we still play, Yeah.
There's something about it, and I think it's in all the songs, but there's just like this, I think it's especially with Love and Hope. The lyrics at the time, because I was just working so hard, and when you say put your head up, put your hand up, and no fear in your eyes, I was like, man,
cool,
man, so inspirational.
That was I think Believe and Love and Hope were our little nod to what was happening in the Middle East at the time. It's the beginning of the first kind of a round of like U.S. involvement in Afghanistan, and we thought it was incorrect, and those are our little nods of just kind of humanity, for people all over the place, like, And we love music and people from all over the place. We think that's what makes the world special, you know, and rich, like all this kind of like different experiences that and culture that people bring. And that was just our little nod to the kind of that and that song was written from a perspective of maybe a child having to deal with that, trying to have to deal with conflict, you know, and that's kind of how it came about, you know.
Yeah, it just is so inspirational. First album for me was Embrace the Chaos, which I know wasn't your first, but that's where you got me hooked.
That just happened, you know, that came out on 9/11.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh.
We were in Detroit, and we were on tour promoting this record. It came out right on this day. Yeah, there was an article I think recently that KCRW put about a bunch of records that came out that day, and one of them was ours. So
man,
and it just happened to be called "Embrace the Chaos."
Oh,
that was a phrase that we had embraced ourselves. It was like a little mantra we had because there was a lot of stuff happening in our career. Charlie and Cut had left. We were making a new record. We were doing a lot of collaborations. We had moved to a different record label. We were like, it was the second record. It seemed a little chaotic, and we were like, just embrace it, man, because this is what it is.
Yeah.
Just embrace the chaos and roll with it. So, and then Common, we did a track with Common on that song.
I remember that one.
And I think it's a great track, and it's kind of prophetic. So all that was going on that day with that, we were all just like, whoa, you know, so it still trips us out to this day.
Man.
You know?
Yeah, it's so amazing. And you guys are always involved with you know, a lot of causes. I mean, tell me about how that's influenced the music and how that works in.
I think as people, you know, we were that before we were in this band. And some more than others, you know. And I think the way our first gig was to support a strike of, you know, there were workers on strike, and Will, our bass player, and our original drummer Anton, were part of that. That's really what the first gig was. It was like, come together, play. We need a reason to charge $5 at the door to like have some supplies for, you know, the things we're doing at the center we're creating. That's really what it was. So we were open to like. Because we were musicians, there was a person who that was influential to us when we were young that Will and Antonio used to work with. This guy, Carmelo Alvarez, who was a break dancer and was really into kind of lifting up youth culture, especially youth street culture, you know, and allow it, like giving kids kind of a space to do their thing and express themselves. And that's what that center was being made for, and so that's how that was our first gig. So after that, it was other people. Well, will you go play for us at, we're trying to raise money for this women's shelter, for sure. Or we're trying to raise money, this organization, to send, some students to Chiapas to go hang out with the people down there. Oh, yeah. Anything that we'd be a part of that we were down to support. And it was an opportunity for us to play also. So for us, it was kind of these two things. And I think that's why we always... Because we're like that as people, like some of those things that we have within us are just who we are. And because our first gigs were kind of based on that. So that's kind of always been with us, you know.
I think it's great. Yeah. You know, my life has really changed. You know, it's funny. You probably heard the same thing, you know, when you're younger. You're always told, well, you know, it's always good to give back. And, you know, when you're young, you're like, well, I got nothing to give. Yeah. But as I've gotten older, it's like there's nothing better than giving back the causes that you believe in. I mean, do you feel the same way?
Yeah, and I think all of us experienced that when we were young from someone older. It's not, you know, being a musician is not an easy road. But if you love it enough and you're willing to put the work in, to be good at your craft, you know, it increases the chances of, it's like anything else. It's a skill. You have to be good enough to show up and impress people with your skill.
Right.
And that takes work. That takes practice. It takes like discipline. It takes, you know, kind of being self-critical. It takes you looking at yourself, seeing where you're weak and growing, like all this kind of stuff. And we would do that as a band, I think. But all of us have stories of older people kind of laying that on us, like when a lot of people were like, I don't know if you should do that as like for real, like as a job. Adults saying, you can do this, but you have to, it's work. It's not you just don't get up on stage and you're famous. It's like, you got to learn, you got to be good at what you do. You got to deal with the business. You want to be a songwriter, then you got to be practice that. You want to be a guitar player, you got to practice that. You want to be a singer, you got to practice that. You want to be whatever it is. It's work. And having people who could like throw it down at us like that and be like, not discourage us, encourage us, but kind of also lay the reality. Like, it just doesn't happen. You're not in front of a mirror like playing air guitar, and then all of a sudden you blow up. It's like you need to work at your craft, and that will sustain you. And
put in your hours, and you'll master anything. Your 10,000 hours.
Yeah.
Well, you guys have done that more, because I tell you, there's no such thing as a bad Ozomatli show or song. Period.
That's
you guys
very
mop
kind.
the floor with anybody. I just went to the Full in Love festival.
Oh, cool.
And but I was
that
missing
sounded
you guys.
fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. Who booked that? We got to call him up.
Yeah. I felt like calling to promote, like, what's up, man? You got all the great, where's Ozo, man?
Right on.
So what's next on the horizon for you guys?
We
What's
got
coming
a
up?
show coming up at the Greek on October 25th.
Nice.
That's always a great place to play. If you're from LA, or not even if you're not from LA and you've never played there, it's tucked in, Griffith Park. It's real beautiful. That's always fun. And then we're also playing there with Los Lonely Boys and Los Lobos on, no, I think that's in Ontario somewhere, but those are two big gigs, yeah,
Nice.
that are local and that are kind of like, Chicano flavor shows, and have some fun. And you'll see a lot of like, that's when I see my friends from like elementary school and junior high school.
Oh, yeah.
Because we all grew up in the neighborhood around the Boyle Heights, and they'll definitely come to shows like that, because those bands resonate in those communities. And so we'll have that kind of day, those two shows.
Right on. And any new recordings?
We got some recordings right now. We're working on new ones. And I think we're in the middle of working with this guy, Carlos Huayco, that we really love, who is a great musician, but also a great promoter. He puts on a thing called the Next Fest that happens in Pomona. He has this company called Label Squad that helps artists kind of learn about all these things that you need to know as a musician. And it could be something as simple like, what is a writer?
Yeah.
So he teaches them, this group of people teach, and kind of a bunch of like local young artists, like how to do it independently, if that's your only venue, if that's your only way at the moment, but how to get it done and learn kind of as much as you can in that process. He's a great songwriter and a great musician, and I love working with him. And we wrote something recently that the band really loved, so we're trying to get with him. So we're just at a point where we're trying to create. We're making music for a movie that's being pitched right now. This movie called Smile Now. It's a great idea, great film. So we're always working on stuff. Yeah.
Loving it.
Yeah.
Raul, man, it's been an honor, privilege. I thank you so much for coming on the show.
It's real cool, man, and thanks for inviting.
Hey, appreciate it. Thank you so much.
All right, cool.